Somewhere on a ranch road south of Uvalde tonight, an animal is walking that weighs more than the record says it can, and it is not alone. At least 7 predators in Texas keep turning up bigger than the books allow, on caliche roads and river bottoms in the weedy edge of the last subdivision. Biologists have a clean reason for each one, and not one of the reasons quite covers it. So this list is not ranked by how deadly they are. It is ranked by how completely their size has learned to disappear. At number 1, the animal you call a coyote, carrying the blood of a wolf this country swore was gone. Number 7, the bobcat. You know this one. That is the whole problem with it. The bobcat is the wild animal Texans are most certain they have already measured. A house cat that went feral and mean. 20 pounds of attitude in a cedar brake. Texas Parks and Wildlife will tell you that ordinary adult runs 12 to 20 pounds, and that an old fat tom might reach 36. That is the picture almost everyone carries. It is also years out of date at the top end. Out in the western part of the state, houndsmen run an annual contest for the biggest cat brought in. 2 of the winners weighed 42 pounds, one in 2009, one in 2021. Year after year, the heaviest cats cross 30 pounds without anyone blinking. That is not a house cat gone wrong. That is a compact ambush predator that can jump 10 feet from a standstill and pull down a full-grown deer, folded into a body the size of a chow dog. And it is not rare. Wildlife agencies estimate somewhere between 2 and 3.5 million bobcats across the country. And in Texas, they live in every single county, from the far west Texas desert to the parking lots and green belts of the biggest cities. They have adapted to us better than almost any other native predator. They den under back porches. They cross 8-lane highways at 3 in the morning. They raise kittens 2 streets over from an elementary school, and they do it so quietly that the neighborhood never learns their names. And here's why the big ones vanish. When a person actually sees a large bobcat up close, in daylight, the mind refuses the size. The animal is too heavy, too long in the leg, too broad across the chest to be the cat they expected. So they reach for the only other file they have. They call it a young mountain lion. They report a cougar sighting to a game warden who has heard it 40 times that season, and the warden files it gently under mistaken identity. The bobcat gets erased twice. Once because it is common. Once because when it finally gets big enough to notice, we hand it a bigger animal's name and look away. You have walked past one. It watched you go, and it did not move, and you told yourself it was small. Number 6, the western diamondback rattlesnake. This is the longest rattlesnake in Texas and the largest venomous snake in the state, and the number attached to it is the one nobody believes. The average adult is a manageable animal, 3 to 4 feet, thick, patient, tan and gray, with the black and white bands near the tail. That is the diamondback most Texans meet, but the reliably measured record for the species runs to around 7 feet, snout to the base of the rattle, and the heaviest individuals have carried close to 15 pounds of muscle. 7 feet of pit viper, thick as a man's forearm at the middle, holding perfectly still in the shade of a fence post you're about to step over. Now here is how thoroughly Texas has trained itself not to look at this animal. In the town of Sweetwater, out west of Abilene, there is a festival built entirely around the diamondback. It started in 1958 when local ranchers wanted the snakes gone, and it grew into the largest rattlesnake roundup in the world. Every March, around 25,000 people come to watch. Hunters go out to the dens and flush the snakes into the open, often by pumping gasoline down into the ground where they winter. The catch is hauled to the county coliseum, weighed by the thousands of pounds, milked of venom for anti-venom research, then beheaded and skinned in front of the crowd. In the record year, 2016, hunters brought in more than 24,000 pounds of rattlesnake. The event pulls something like $8 million into that small town every spring. Over the decades, the running total climbs past 100 tons. Think about what that means. An entire community has turned the not seeing of this snake into a ritual, a spectacle, a source of scholarships and Thanksgiving dinners. It is one of the only ways most people will ever look at a diamondback at all, and by the time they do, the animal is a number on a scale and a pile in a pit, which is the same trick the snake plays on you in the field, only reversed. Out there, the reason you never register how big one is comes down to a single sound: the rattle. You will hear it long before you understand what you are standing next to. Your whole body locks onto a direction and a distance. You are managing a warning. You are not seeing an animal. Your eyes never travel the length of it, never take in where the head ends and where 4, 5, 6 feet away, the tail is still going. Most people never close that gap. They leave, grateful, having never learned how long the thing in the grass really was. If a diamondback of that length is a shock to you, sitting where you are right now, that tells you the picture in your head needs updating. That is what this channel is for. If you are getting something out of this one, take a second to subscribe. It is the simplest way to catch the next one when it drops. Number 5, the American alligator. We file this animal under somewhere else. A Louisiana thing, a Florida thing, a swamp in a documentary, far from any road you drive. That instinct is how a 14-foot reptile hides in your own state. Texas holds an estimated 500,000 alligators, and its real range is the eastern third and the whole Gulf Coast. The bayous and coastal marshes and the slow brown rivers, the Trinity, the Sabine, the water at the bottom of the county you actually live in. The state gives the body length as 6 to 14 feet. The heaviest ever verified in Texas weighed 800 pounds and measured 14 feet, 3 inches, taken in 2013 from a reservoir in the southern brush country, about 90 miles below San Antonio. Wildlife officials figured that animal was 30 to 50 years old. It had been getting that big in public water for half a century, and it does far more than lie still and grow. In spring, the big males bellow, a sound so low you feel it in your chest before you hear it, and the water dances off their backs. In the coldest snaps, when a Texas pond skins over with ice, an alligator will hold its snout at the surface and let itself freeze in place, breathing through a hole, waiting out the winter without moving for weeks. Females build nests of rotting vegetation and guard them, and carry their newly hatched young to the water in their mouths, one of the few reptiles on Earth that mothers its offspring at all. The part that should stop you is the recovery. In 1969, Texas gave the alligator complete protection. It was nearly gone, hunted out for its hide, and the state listed it as endangered. By 1985, it was delisted, fully recovered, and now there are 500,000 of them. The giant in the bayou is not a holdover from an older, wilder Texas. It came back while we were looking the other way, filing the whole species under a place that was never here. And for all their size, these animals almost never want anything to do with you. Serious attacks are vanishingly rare. The 14-footer in the slough would rather sink out of sight than be seen at all, which is precisely why you have driven over it, on a bridge, 100 times, and never known. Quick question before we climb higher. Where are you watching this from tonight? And have you ever actually seen one of these animals in the wild, closer than you wanted to? Drop it in the comments. I read them. And the sightings from people in these places are half the reason this channel exists. Number 4, the wild hog. There are more than 2 million feral hogs in Texas. Some estimates put it closer to 3. As of 2019, they occupied every county in the state except one, El Paso, out on the far western corner. A mature hog runs from 100 pounds to well over 400. Hunters call 300 a big one. And the true monsters, the boars that keep the legend alive, cross 500. In 2020, 2 men culling hogs in a neighborhood in Liberty County brought down a boar that weighed 488 pounds. That is a verified animal. The most famous of them, a hog Texans call Borzilla, was reported at nearly 800 pounds, a figure no agency ever officially confirmed, which is its own kind of tell about how big these things get before anyone bothers to weigh them. This is the one case where we do know why. Feral hogs carry domestic pig genes. They breed year-round. Almost nothing in Texas is big enough to eat a grown boar, and the food never runs out. Fatten an animal with no ceiling and no predator, and it does not stop. And they do not just get big. They get more. A sow can breed at 6 months old and raise 2 or 3 litters a year, which is how a hog population can roughly double in about 4 months. They move in family groups called sounders. They root up pastures until a field looks plowed, and a single pig can do $1,000 in damage in one night. Texas Parks and Wildlife has put the yearly agricultural loss around $118 million, and broader accountings that add in control costs and infrastructure run the Texas total up toward $870 million. They carry diseases that keep livestock veterinarians awake, and they push out of the farmland into the suburbs, tearing up soccer fields and golf courses and front lawns in the dark. So the mystery is not the size. The mystery is why you never see the giant. And the answer is the number itself. When there are 2 million of anything, each one stops being an animal and becomes a statistic, a nuisance, a line in an agriculture report. You cannot picture the individual monster inside a plague you have already given up counting. The 500-pound boar is not hiding in the brush. It is hiding in the arithmetic. And if a 500-pound animal can disappear into a number that big, think about what happens to a predator the state decided, for 50 years, not to count at all. Number 3, the mountain lion. Texas has a breeding population of mountain lions, real, resident, reproducing cats, in the South Texas brush country, the Western Hill country, and the Trans-Pecos out toward Big Bend. Large males of this species are among the biggest cats in North America, and the ones in the South Texas brush live in some of the best deer country on the continent, which is to say they eat very, very well. They take deer, and where deer run thin, they take sheep and goats without any regard for which is wild and which belongs to a rancher. But if you asked how large the biggest Texas lion has ever been, no one could give you a clean answer. Because until almost this moment, the state kept no real accounting of them at all. Here is the fact that should stop you cold. Texas was, for decades, the only state in the country with a breeding population of mountain lions that had no hunting or trapping regulations whatsoever, and no management plan of any kind. The lion was a non-game animal. It could be killed year-round by nearly any method, with no limit and no requirement to report it. Once, cougars ranged across the whole state, all the way into the East Texas forests, before they were shot and trapped out of the eastern half entirely. What remains holds on at low density in the brush, and the desert mountains, seen almost never, tracked almost less. That did not change until 2024, when the Wildlife Commission passed the first real rules in over 50 years, banning canned hunts and requiring that a trapped lion be checked within 36 hours. Those rules took effect on the 1st of September. Before that, an animal could sit in a snare until it died of thirst, and no form was ever filed. That is the denial angle here, and it is different from all the others. You do not fail to see this cat because it is common, or because it is fast, or because it lives somewhere else. You fail to see it because the state itself declined to look for half a century. There is no record for the big one to break, no logbook it could shock, no baseline to be startled against. The largest mountain lion Texas has ever produced is almost certainly one that was never weighed, never photographed, never entered anywhere. Official absence trains public absence. We did not see the ghost cat because, on paper, we agreed it was not there. And if a cat the size of a grown man can vanish from the paperwork, imagine what happens to an animal the paperwork insists is already extinct in the state. Number 2, the black bear. Ask almost any Texan and they will tell you, flatly, that there are no wild bears in Texas. They are not lying. They are quoting a fact they learned once and never updated, because it was true for a while. By the 1950s, black bears had been shot, trapped, and poisoned out of West Texas. By the 1960s, they were essentially gone from the state and nearly wiped out across the border in Mexico, too. Then they came back on their own. Nobody released them. Nobody planned it. Starting in the late 1980s and through the 1990s, black bears began walking north across the international border out of the mountains of Coahuila, into Big Bend, into the Chisos, the Davis, and the Guadalupe ranges. Landowners in Coahuila had let their bear population recover until it reached one of the highest densities in North America, and the surplus did what surplus does. It spread. Today, the Borderlands Research Institute at Sul Ross and the Texas Parks and Wildlife Foundation are collaring these animals to track where they go, and biologists now count somewhere around 30 to 50 resident bears, with sightings pushing east into the Edwards Plateau and up into the pine country of East Texas, where transient bears also wander in from Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Louisiana. Sows with cubs, not wanderers, residents. They live on prickly pear fruit and piñon nuts and acorns in the high desert woodlands, fattening in the fall, denning in the rocks, raising cubs in country most Texans think holds nothing bigger than a mule deer. So, what does bigger than it should be mean for a bear? Male black bears can top 300 pounds in good country, and that is startling enough on a Texas ranch road, headlights catching something that reads, for one confused second, as a person on all fours. But the size that has really outrun expectation is not the animal, it is the number. A population that was zero, that everyone agreed was permanently zero, quietly rebuilding itself into breeding families across a growing stretch of the state, entirely without permission. The knowledge in your head says none. The land says otherwise, and the land is more current than the textbook. The bear is a state-listed threatened species now, which means the return is real enough that Texas has written laws to protect an animal most of its residents still swear does not exist. Which brings us to the last one. The one where the question at the top of this video, why they grow bigger than they should, finally has an answer. And the answer is worse than the mystery. Number 1. The coyote. You have decided before I even finish this sentence that this is the easy one. Everyone knows the coyote. 30 pounds of gray nerves, singing at the edge of the pasture, the punchline predator, the one that loses in the cartoons. That word, coyote, is the most complete disguise any animal in Texas wears. Because on Galveston Island and in the marshes of the upper Gulf Coast, the coyotes are wrong. They run bigger, longer in the leg, heavier through the shoulder, redder in the coat, with wider ears and a white blaze on the muzzle. For years, the people who noticed them assumed they were just unusual coyotes, and they let it go. Because it is only a coyote. A man named Ron Wooten did not let it go. He kept seeing these strange, oversized canines on the island, and he sent tissue from 2 of them, killed on the road, to a genetics lab. What came back rewrote the map. Researchers led by scientists at Princeton and Michigan Tech, including Bridget Von Holt and Kristen Brzezinski, published the finding in 2018. Those Galveston animals were carrying the genes of the red wolf. The red wolf that the United States government declared extinct in the wild in 1980. A wolf that officially stopped existing along this coast almost 40 years before anyone ran the test. You have to understand how far gone that animal is to feel the weight of this. The red wolf is the most endangered wolf on Earth, and one of the most endangered animals of any kind. It has lost more of its historic range than any other large carnivore alive, more than the lion, the tiger, or the snow leopard. Over 99% of the ground it once walked, a range that stretched from the bayous of East Texas all the way up the coast toward New York, is simply gone to it. In the late 1970s, with the last wild red wolves clinging to the Texas and Louisiana coast, federal biologists captured 17 of them and used just 14 to start a captive breeding program. Every red wolf alive today, every one, descends from those 14 animals. There is now a single wild population left, in one corner of eastern North Carolina, and as of early 2025, it numbered around 16 known individuals. Around 280 more live in breeding facilities. That is the entire species. That is all of them. And then a handful of coyotes on a Texas barrier island turned out to be carrying pieces of that wolf that exists nowhere else. Some of these coastal canines are more than a third red wolf. A couple sampled on the mainland came back at over half. They also hold stretches of genetic code found in no living red wolf, no captive one, no coyote, no gray wolf in any reference collection, which means these dismissed oversized coyotes may be holding the last copies of red wolf genes that were lost everywhere else on the planet. Extinct genetics, still walking, inside the one animal we were all too bored to look at twice. That is why they grow bigger than they should. Not a mystery of climate or diet or luck. Part of them is a wolf that is not supposed to be here at all. And the cruelest part is that we are still killing them without knowing it. On one stretch of road on Galveston Island, cars struck at least 75 of these ghost wolves between 2020 and 2025. So many that the State Highway Department finally put up wildlife crossing signs, warning drivers about an animal that officially does not have a name. The largest, strangest coyote you will ever see on the upper Texas coast is not really a coyote. It is a ghost that learned to answer to a smaller name so we would stop hunting it. So here's what this list is actually about. Not fear. Not one of these animals is looking for you. The bobcat you passed, the diamondback that let you leave, the gator that has been in that bayou since before you were born, the lion the state forgot to count, the bear that walked home without asking, the wolf hiding inside a word. What they share is not danger. It is patience, and a size we keep deciding not to see because seeing it would mean admitting the wild parts of Texas never actually left. They were only waiting for us to stop watching. They still are. Right now, the ghost wolves are moving through the dunes on Galveston's east end, crossing the road under those new yellow signs. A bear is walking a ridge in the Chisos with 2 cubs behind her. And down in the Trinity Bottoms, in water the color of strong tea, something 14 feet long is holding still, breathing slow, in no hurry at all. It has all the time in the world. If you like this one, YouTube already thinks you'll like the video on your screen right now. Go ahead, it's waiting too.